the second game from the match between the Fister Sisters and Last Minute Arrivals is going to be played on Frozen Time Sea of Worms. So that's basically Sea of Worms from RTS League that you know, the version without the fortresses but with towers, so basically random map start. And it makes for a pretty fun map. And it's a home map, of course, for Last Minute Arrivals right now. They are going to be playing with the same players, if I see things correctly, and yes, I do, but a whole lot of different civilizations. Heimdall is the only one sticking with Oranos, but Tompex is switching into Kronos from Loki, and Matreus is switching from Oranos into Zeus, which of course makes a whole lot of sense on a map like this. For the opponents, the Fister Sisters, who need to right now win basically all the remaining games to advance into the finals of the Bad Luck Bracket. Yeah, looking at the same lineup as well, with Joe switching from Set into Isis, which I think is his main god, rather than the Set. Chaos is back is switching into Thor, which is also his main god, if I remember correctly. And Narve is switching into Oranos. And for Narve, I think he can play pretty much everything. So opting for Oranos and hoping that it's going to be helping him in this game. Well, then we are right now right in the bucket for Latompex, who is having pretty much normal start on Sea of Forms. You can see a lot of berries at the top and some chickens at the bottom. You usually don't start with hunt, but sometimes you can get boars reasonably close. But I don't see them, so let's cheat a bit. Aha, he didn't even need to cheat, he is just now discovering that together with the bear. And that might be a bit dangerous because of this bear, exactly. So he needs to be careful, as even though he's Atlantean, it could be a whole lot of extra damage into him that he doesn't want. And let's see if he goes with the villager to the bottom or goes for the chickens. Kinda curious right now because he knows about Piggy and he doesn't want to risk it. So he might be waiting for the second citizens and then go for it. In the meantime, basically the most important stuff in the early game on Sea of Forms is placing your dogs around the middle of the map, as we are looking at that actually yellow is going to be quite close by to Heimdall. They are literally right next to each other. That's not going to be any kind of harassment by Matreus apparently on Narvi, whereas Tompex is basically a bit more into the middle of the map, but I'm fully expecting that second dog is going to be quite closer to his teammate to the top, so that they can fight for it, as we are also going to be expecting a dog at the very bottom from Matreus, and at the very top for Chaos is back. Since, of course, we have a Kronos, last minute arrivals, we are looking at the construction of the dock, but with the villager being close by, it's going to be just a bit of a delay, but it might be a pretty crucial delay, because once again, we are looking at Heimdall's dock being right close by, and he will be stealing basically the fishing spots from yellow. And that means that, of course, he will be having slightly more inefficient fishing, and that might result into slower advance time, and much more importantly, in a bit more difficult situation with the early fights on the water and garrisoning some fishing boats for some extra fire from them. In the meantime, we are just now looking, for example, into Narvi's base, who is having gold kinda close by to the tower and to the TC, so it should be reasonably defensible for him. But the front DC from his, we could be thinking either this one or this one is this front DC. This is of course going to be super important strategically because it's like in the middle of the map. That's usually very important for your game, whereas the one on the left, it's kind of sucky, but might be underestimated by either Narve or Heimdall. And if it is, it could be extra population limit for the opponent, basically for free. So yep, you mustn't forget about those TCs, as they might be making a difference in later game. Going for the bars, of course, right now Matreus, whereas Tompex is still not really interested in that. That's very curious, because of course Hunt is faster than both chickens and berries. And we are just now looking at aggressive build-up of the temple from Aranos Kaigo Heimdall, already waiting with the triple oracles, so he's definitely going to be aiming to kill Drog as soon as possible, and that might be a pretty good idea for him. In the meantime, some relic, Archer Troll Centaur, cheaper, might be useful for the Zeus. Should be going through Athena, I would be expecting, as he's just now dropping a temple. And otherwise, where are some extra relics? For example, here. Better Archer, Ballista, Kiro, Ballista, Pierce deck. Not bad. Another relic in the middle. Helpful monkeys. Why not? Why not? And better infantry heck armor. That's a pretty big one. That's a pretty big one indeed, especially for the Thor. That could be useful for him. He goes for some Herseers or even some Throwing Axemen, which is a unit I would be expecting from him against all the Murmilos that are bound to be coming from the Atlanteans on the other side of the map. So Prometheus already coming in from Heimdall, pretty decent advance time, with Tompex being slightly slower. It's going to be actually a lot slower. It's going to be like 5-minute advance because of the inefficient food gathering, I would be thinking. As you are looking at, of course, Hermes, Odysseus, and Narvi still not advancing either. So that's of course basically the result of the reconstruction of the dock. And looking at Heimdall, oh, he's cheeky. He's cheeky because he's probably right now thinking that he's going to be reconstructing the dock yet again. Let's switch into Heimdall. Oh, is he actually the Kronos? No. That means that it's Matreus. It's Matreus. God damn it, it's Tompex. Very last one. And he's almost ready with the second reconstruct. So he's going to be just basically waiting, and they seem to be interested just taking it down like that. And are they going to be hoping that they can reconstruct the dock rather than temple before advance? I'm not exactly sure, because right now players are advancing to the next ages. Heimdall, and Matreus, with their construction being ready. Just a moment, but Freya is up, and we should be expecting Narvi to be advancing also. But potentially he could be losing the Promethean if somebody is going to scout him, but that doesn't seem to be the case so far. In the meantime, Narvi is basically scouting right next to green, trying to see what's going to happen on the land, but of course, on the water, the faster advance times are going to be making a whole lot of difference, especially with getting rid of Narvi on the water altogether, and you can see that Narvi is attempting to rebuild himself in the meantime at the top. Going to be hoping to fight with Joe 1244, so I'll be thinking that Joe advancing slightly slower right about now through Anubis. Interesting. He definitely wants a bit more protection. Not exactly sure if for water, but it might be useful for protecting TCs and protecting themselves against land aggression. Exactly right now with the Anubite, but unfortunately the Hero Oracles are getting rid of it quite soon, and are seeing the Serpents right now being on the sea. That's actually not a bad idea. You can see at least a few boats are going to be paying or being in this position. And that was from Yellow yet again. So he is quite nicely being corralled and denied any kind of water battle at all. But these snakes are pretty important because it means that Lats cannot really engage all that much, as this damage from those snakes is just a bit too much. They are not really bad. Yeah, 8 attack. It's not really bad at all, and the stats are not bad either. In the meantime, though, we are looking at pretty much a growing army, getting rid of all the docks on the shoreline. They've already killed one from yellow. Right now they're killing one from red. That's a pretty big problem, of course, because they are severely limiting the possibilities of spamming boats on water for the Fister Sisters, and it will be basically compounding the advantage on the water for last-minute arrivals. And we are seeing a bit bigger presence from the teal player, which is something that I was basically waiting for and a bit missing. And we are also seeing, well, as the battle is going slightly even for the Fister Sisters, that there's going to be a bit of raiding potentially, as Heimdall is having a bit of fun scouting around and potentially might be joined by Tompex, who is just basically waiting next to the TC, making sure that it isn't stolen, and is going to be applying pressure on the opponent's home base. But it seems to be that Narvi will be ready for exactly that. Water right now in pretty much an equal battle, surprisingly a bit, it has to be said. Both because of the nice destruction of the docks, not only through the construction, but also through the land force, but much more importantly because last-minute arrivals were advancing a whole lot faster than their opponents. That should usually give you pretty significant advantage, but right now it doesn't seem to be the case, and somehow they probably invested a bit more resources into land battles than they did into water, and it's right now not really paying for them all that much. It was probably the last of the snakes. There actually still is at least one alive, but one or two are still alive, helping with the defense. And well, in the meantime, Matreus is going for a bit of raiding, and it's almost looking like that you might be seeing something similar from last-minute arrivals, as Matreus is doing also from the rest, because they might be really doing a good job going for a bit of raiding, because the economy right now on the water is getting quite strong from Chaos's back, or rather for Chaos's back, and overall the rate is of death, and it might be really a pretty big boost for them, especially if they do manage to secure the water overall. But it's not really all that easy, as the fights are still happening. But you mustn't forget that Atreus, as Zeus, doesn't have the restoration because he went through Hermes, and that means that he won't be having any kind of big game-changing god power for the water anymore. So that should be given pretty good chance for Mr. Sisters to somehow close it up. But they also need to be careful, of course, on the land, as we are looking at Narvi, trying to somehow protect Joe 1244, who is establishing himself in this position as well, and hoping that they will be in time to protect against potential radiant, exactly like from Heimdall or from Tompex a bit to the left. Joe seems to be doing a pretty good job with the defense so far, with back TCs not being captured all that much, but you can see that Chaos is back is basically thinking about it, hoping that it's gonna happen pretty soon. So you're also looking at Joe coming for it right about now. Whereas the opponents, the first one is going to be Matreus, who is going to be at 2 TTs, and it seems like that last minute arrivals are right now having slight upper hand about their opponents as they are pushing them back right next to the docks. But looking at the amount of the buildings, I'm kinda thinking that if Mr. Sisters plays this correctly, they should be able to hold until Heroic Age reaches, or is reached by either last minute arrivals or them themselves. Of course, for last minute arrivals it would mean basically the victory on the water, but for the opponents it would be meaning basically a pretty convincing push through, because they are still having pretty decent numbers and they are still committing themselves quite nicely to the fighting. Be true especially for Red, as Yellow is not really having all that many resources. We have seen 0% and he's actually switching off altogether, so he's basically giving up on the water, which means that maybe wanted to go into full on land. Maybe thinking that Joe's army is going to be enough, but let's not be too hasty, because Joe is right now not paying attention and unfortunately being quite successfully kited by Matreus. That was nicely played. Just luring the army to pursue one of the boats, and that meant a whole lot of extra damage from the rest of them. Nicely played indeed. So let's have a look around who is advancing to the next age. Stompex's units in Yellow's base are not really looking promising for the next ages for either of the players, but we are looking at front TC being captured, or Chaos is back, or front TC next to the water, so front TC. It's like that, and we are looking at second TC captured by Tompex, and they are recognizing they need to do something about the economy, unless the game might be trickling through their fingers, because the situation on the water seems to be coming their way, but otherwise on the land, slightly slower. That might not really be paying off in the long run. So the water seems to be kind of, yeah, let's say decided, like that it is of death will be in the next minutes able to come back, but with heroic age it potentially could be. But of course right now Chaos is back is going to be losing a whole lot of economy on the water, and that will mean, yep, all that harder time to get into the next ages, and especially into the mythic, which he might be planning after Heroic Age sometime soon. So we are in the meantime looking at Tompex establishing himself right next to the front DC of Heimdall, trying to make sure that he's ready for the attack that is going to come, but he might not be ready all that soon enough, because of course Narvi wasn't just loafing around as he was being raided exactly by Bull player. He's already established himself and will be able to kill the few units, and maybe even the citizen that is right now establishing the forward base for himself. So there's going to be all 3 T's for Tompex on the water. That's not going to be any kind of doubt on what is happening. Heimdall and Tompex already moving to the top, and let's switch through the players to that see who is advancing, and we are looking at, for example, Tompex, who seems to be aiming there, but of course not having any kind of great luck in this position. But with green coming back, we should be pretty much fine. Get rid of the yellow army. Joe not also coming anywhere anytime soon. Interestingly, Heimdall going for the front TC right now. That's going to be draining his resources also, but that of course means that he still might be coming into Heroic Age in reasonable time, because he has already spent the resources as those figures are coming there, and of course he is still growing in numbers quite nicely, even though he is of course forced to defend right about now. So it's going to be Heroic Age from Atreus reasonably soon, in just like a few seconds. Chaos is back, attempting to advance as well. He's quite close by with the resources. And Narvi as the last one, yeah, he's definitely not going anywhere. And he's going to be having a hard time going into a heroic age because, of course, without the water economy and basically spending a lot of resources into classical fighting right now into the towers, he's expecting a whole lot of extra fighting in the classical, and he's going to be stuck in there for a bit longer. We are right now looking at Chaos's back, moving into the middle. Yeah, that's exactly where the next fight and battle is going to be happening. And in the meantime, Atreus is not doing all that much as they are getting rid of all the docks, but Blue should definitely help him at the bottom because they need to get rid of the docks for heroic ages hit, and there is a possibility for a surprise on them. First coming for the TC, but the Oracle Scouting definitely helped, and Yellow is going to be attempting to go there, but unfortunately for him, it should be seen that this army is not something that he can take on at all. Yeah, he's right now recognizing that this is not going to work for him all that much. With the second Oracle Pain with his life, and of course, it means that the TC is right now Green's, and front TC on the other side is also his. So basically confirming that, unfortunately for the TC of Death, Narvi is going to be stuck with just 2, as the front TC is not going to be his, like at all. Because they are all going to be coming into the opponent's power, as there is a pretty decent rating right now on red from Tompex. Chaos's back is one of the first to advance into Heroic Age. Joe is also through just now. But he doesn't have any kind of significant line of sight, like any line of sight on the opponent's base, so he cannot really go for some kind of locusts on villages. It's not really in his power, and well, this is super important, because exactly Tompex is doing what he should be doing, and that's delaying the Migdol from the Egyptian player in the Heroic Age, and that's of course going to be paying off quite a lot, as he's moving a bit back with better infantry heck armor. He definitely helps for the Thor, of course, but since Chaos's back is fighting on his behalf, basically trying to buy him time, it seems like that this might be working quite nicely, especially because of the Battleborn. That is to be turning the battle around, and of course with the help from the Petsuchos, and even potentially some extra fire from the tower, it should be pretty much fine, especially with help from Narvi coming exactly on time, but he needs to be himself careful, as lost the citizen and the gold. Will need to move somewhere else, because of course from the bottom he's going to be raided by Green, who is already quite nicely established at the bottom side, and the gold is exactly going to be the problem, because we are seeing that those 2 gold mines, which basically should have been in Yellow's power, aren't, and behind the bases there are not all that many gold mines, just basically this one, where Joe is right now establishing himself and switching into Axeman, and there's not really all that much else, basically just 1 gold mine from, or rather 4, for Chaos's back, and it means that the TC of Death are going to be running out of gold pretty soon. Yeah, quite lucky to discover at least this one. And I'm fairly certain that there's not anything else, as they are right now building trade, which is going to be quite effective, to be said. But yet again, without the gold, it's going to be quite difficult indeed. Matthews in the meantime is just now at 16 minutes advancing into Mythical Age, so we are going to be expecting Colossi and Underworld Passage somewhere to the back of the opponent's bases. Still having pretty strong presence on the water. He will definitely the population limit from all those boats, but he's just trying to make sure that his opponents are not going to be surprising him, and he seems to be doing a pretty great job of that. In the meantime, let's just check the battle in Yellow's base, as we are seeing already quite a decent amount of chariot archers coming up, and we are looking at the Underworld Passage, and yep, he's not even going somewhere to the back of the bases, he's just going where he had the line of sight, and you can see Joe, level 44, was attempting to go for the docks at the top, establishing himself also at the middle, but that's not going to be working for him all that much, as Chaos is back. It's right now, surprisingly, 4 for Matreus going into Ragnarok. How many upgrades does he have? At least the baseline. And how many villages? 94, so that means basically full pop. That means full pop at Ragnarok, and that could be turning the battle around quite a lot. Let's see, because he's definitely gonna easily kill the Underworld Passage, which was one of the win conditions right now for last minute arrivals, and he's of course going to be supplying a whole lot of help into the middle, where Green is right now making pretty big problems for his opponent, as he's advancing to Heroic, the same as Tompex. But it's just a question of time before those dudes with the hammers are going to be in for the fight, and of course they are going to be getting rid of absolutely everything, as Joe is also quite clever at establishing himself right in the middle of Yellow's base. Because definitely needed. And it's going to be all about the correct usage of the Ragnarok, because of course, if they can somehow manage it, you can see the underworld passage already gone. They might be getting rid of opponents' DCs quite a lot, and basically, especially this front base, and that might be helping not only Narve, but the whole team. I would definitely like if Joe took some of the front DCs for himself, because he's Egyptian and he can potentially help himself with mercenaries if he has enough gold. Let's check for Joe. He should be having basically enough gold for his fire right now being cast. Okay, that's not bad to help with the buildings, those two. And Joe really seems to be quite nicely set up, but he seems to be also basically waiting for the heroic age to pass for him and to advance into the mythical age. In the meantime, we are looking at Matreus, who is quite correctly switching into champion Hypaspis, already champions and baseline of upgrades. They are going to be a pretty big problem for the heroes of Ragnarok, even though they are triple bronze. That's definitely pretty great for him. But of course, Hypaspis are pretty direct counter, and with all the extra fire from the Palace TC from the Watchtower, they are going to be dying so fast, and you can exactly see that they are dying faster than the Deities of Death would have hoped for. In the meantime, of course, the TC at the back should be coming down. But let's not be too hasty, because this flank doesn't seem to be really all that strong in the end. In Heroes of Ragnarok, and a pretty big army from green, unfortunately. So yeah, those Heroes of Ragnarok are in the end not going to succeed, which is a very huge problem, because right now the Heroes of Ragnarok are basically just in their last throws. They are almost dead. There's a few remainders in here, killing a villager here and there, but that's pretty much it. And looking at the battle right next to the TC, exactly the extra fire from the palace and from the tower is super crucial. And with the battle being pursued by both Matreus and Dompex, Matreus being at 4 TCs because they had stolen the 1 TC from Narve, they are doing a pretty great job in the defense last minute arrivals. And this definitely should have been something that would be helping Ladies of Death and Vistra Sisters push through. And even the situation on the town centers and overall on the battlefield, maybe even push it forward into their favor. But that definitely didn't happen, as the battle is basically right now in its closing moments. Purple guys are going to be dying pretty soon. Though not fully, it seems like some extra reinforcements arrive in the end, and green needs to be a bit more careful, but of course, since the battle at the middle, rather in the middle, is right now basically established as one, we are also looking at a bit of a retreat from Chaos's back, and that means that green should be pretty much safe with the 3 town centers himself, even with Joe right now advancing into Mythic, with Son of Osiris in tow. In the meantime, Joe is right now attempting to come back into the water, attempting to deny the extra economy for their opponents, and on top of that, give some extra economy to themselves, and much more importantly, he wants to make sure that this TC is not going to be shot at from the water, and he wants to make sure that he could be actually killing the TC at the back of Matreus' base, exactly through this means, and potentially this one as well. Yeah, most definitely, as this is in the water range also. So potentially 2 TCs from Matreus could be coming down if Deities of Death play this correctly and hold on long enough. Let's check some military upgrades. Medium Turmas with Copper Mail for Joe. Oh, for the Joe. For Dompex. Joe is having heavy chariots. And that's it. Yellow. Medium Turmas and nothing, as he just now to heroic age, 21 minutes. Yeah, he was having kind of tough time because of the reconstructs in the early game and such. And blue, heavy Murmilos. Yeah, pretty decent army overall for him. It seems like that he is really doing a pretty great job right now. He'll play with champion Myrmidons, right now with iron mail weapons, but just copper shields. Definitely will be using that against those shields, against those siege. Scale Ballista with chariot archers are both dealing siege, rather pierce damage. So of course pretty easy job for them. Get rid of all the Myrmidons in there, but the Helipoli coming into the battle, that's going to be a pretty big game changer, because they are pretty powerful with their 650 hit points, and of course pretty big, or rather pierce resistance at 95%. And Son of Osiris not really knowing how to carry the relic again. And that's still the same relic actually, the 5 infantry heck armor. He's probably carrying it for like 10 minutes. Definitely should have and deposited it inside his temple or given it to his ally. But that didn't really happen yet, as we have seen a switch in the army from Chaos' back into raiding cavalry that is already in heavy. We are also looking at Green right now pushing through the bottom into Narvi's base. We are also not really surprised by another attempt at basically landing from Matreus because he's having the population limit through the 4 TCs and he has transported some villages into the middle of the map. And even though Joe is right now discovering it, even though he's probably not paying attention, because this seems like basically just going from his home base, as are going to be running out pretty soon. As we are also looking at a bit of a stuck time in there, traffic jam. Joe has just now lost the 45 TC in here because of the Colossi and the Myrmidons. Yep, exactly because of the front base of Matreus, who is going to be making pretty big problems to the opponents right in the middle of the map. So of course still having some kind of presence in the middle, as we are just waiting for Heimdall to somehow push through, who is having heavy Murmillos and baseline of upgrades. Could be going slightly better, but it's not really all that bad either. So that's pretty much fine. In the meantime, medium spearman for Joe. That definitely should be better and no upgrades at all. Just Serpent Spear from Anubis. Fortress attempting to be built. Then coming for the DC, and is that going to be Ceasefire Steel? Uh-oh. Yeah, the Son of Osiris is having other ideas. Nice. Nice indeed. And also quite nice micro with the mummies that are basically direct counterplay to the Colossi. Able to get rid of them pretty soon. Yep. Even though basically Joe saw this, exactly. It's unfortunately a bit too late as there were extra villages from Matreus to be had, and with the ceasefire right now being cast, it's not going to be any kind of problem to finish with the town center, and of course, it's result in pretty big troubles for the ATs of Death having such a defensive position, turning into offensive from Matreus right in the middle of their bases. Mythical Age from Narvi, and where was actually the Tartarian Gate cast? Tartarian Gate from whom? From Heimdall, so somewhere in here, right next to Red's base, and right in the middle of trade route, so that's the correct casting. Correct casting indeed, and looking also on the water, we are looking at exactly what should be happening on the water, and Joe is right now going to be attempting to take down not only the docks, unfortunately just now seeing that Matreus has noticed, but also the town centers, and that should be something that will help them fight the battles to come, of course, because of the stolen TC yet again. But in the meantime, Matreus at 5 TCs is going to be pretty big threat. So of course, basically fully upgraded Zeus is always a huge problem, especially with the extra population limit, and we are looking at that Chaos' back is right now basically fully engaged with him, while Matreus is able push out some extra units, like the Myrmidons you can see, coming through all the barracks, but he's also fighting on the water because he does have enough population limit, but needs to be a whole lot more careful, because of course he doesn't have all that many docks overall. Right now, Chaos' back is going for flaming weapons. And it's kind of interesting right now, thinking about it, that he didn't use them with the Ragnarok, because the Ragnarok wasn't half bad. That could have turned the battle around in the middle, because that was very close, right next to his DC. Well, that's a lot of idols from Matreus, and for quite some time. These dudes are standing here for quite some time, really. Those 3 heroes just loafing around. That's just a pretty big shame, especially considering that he has problems with mummies. But this is looking quite well for Matreus, and he should be able to handle the situation even against the flaming weapons, and he definitely is. Because of course, that's right now the reason why he didn't go for the flaming weapons with the Ragnarok, because he maybe wanted to force the ceasefire without it and give him some extra push, which is exactly what is right now happening in here, but unfortunately not really successfully, because of the simply bigger army that Matreus is having. In the meantime, Matreus is right now at just 4 TCs, because he has lost the TC at the back, the water battles from Joe. But in the meantime, of course, the hammer ships are right now switching into the opposite side of the map, but Joe is ready with arrow ships, and of course the Titan Gate coming up, but without any kind of useful god powers. Well, Narvik could be using right now the Vortex, but he doesn't have enough army at all. I think he's fully engaged in the battle in the middle. Of course he is, and that was a pretty tough problem for him. he cannot really help his teammates with getting rid of the Titan Gate. Side is still picking on momentarily. That was a pretty good attempt on the DC with the catapults. What is actually in the rock? Ah, just those two dudes getting into safety. Apparently, Son of Osiris is just now being killed. And yep, it seems like that this should be slowly coming down, but I wouldn't really be all that sure, because Joe is right now at 2 TCs just, basically the same as Narvi. The battle doesn't seem to be going all that well at all, especially right now considering Narvi will have to defend his own base, because his base has just now lost the 45 TC to Radiant at the top. Of course, due to Heka Gigant's Fronton packs and some extra help from potentially some Colossi and Myrmidons. But moving back to the bottom, Green is of course at 3 TCs, just 2 TCs from Narvi, and yeah, we don't really all that much on Narvi, or rather, all that much army for Narvi. So the battle is going to be quite unequal. You can already see pretty decent raiding being executed all around the map, with Tompex going for Titan as well. So the biggest battle is right now happening basically in the middle of the map. Turmas trying to get rid of the rock, but it's really looking like that Matreus, back at 5 TCs, should be basically able to handle the situation in the middle just by himself, and it's going to be pretty much confirmed by the Titan coming up pretty soon. You can see 66% right now for Heimdall, and once that is up, it's going to be a definite GG right there. Because even though right now Chaos is back, is attempting to retake his front TC, he is of course having pretty big problems, even having to switch villages into army. And that's not something that he would want to do at all. So with Hussars, not so bad. And TC, second Titan Gate coming up just now, as Green is having pretty much a full-on 1v1 right now with Narvi. The TC advantage is definitely quite evident, though Narvi is quite clever to use the Heka Gigants to get rid of the buildings as fast as possible, because they are not half bad. They're actually pretty great at 858 points. Narvi has just now lost TC at the very back to Radiant from Helipoli, which he probably wasn't aware of at all. Like literally at all, it doesn't seem like. There's absolutely no army, and any kind of help from Joe is not coming from mercenaries. And of course, as they are moving forward in the middle, with all those siege and the Titan right now coming up from a resting place under the ground, we are going to be expecting him to basically get rid of the town centers, but he might not even get there. Narvi is gonna be losing the second town center to basically normal push from Heimdall. Is of course now attempting to finish with his opponent as much as he can, as Joe is casting a bit of fun on top of his opponent just before he is going to be resigning, because Narvi is now out and Joe is out as well. But they were able to actually take down the town center, so pretty good job in the end. At least a small victory. This battle that they unfortunately for them lost, but fortunately for last minute arrivals, this is clinching their advance into finals of the bad luck bracket of the Frozen Times tournament. So good job, and quite well and controlled play, to be honest, in both games, even though they were risking with the water. They definitely should have won it a lot sooner. But kudos to Ladies of Death, aka the Fister Sisters, because they fought for it and they forced their opponents to commit through water a whole lot more than they probably thought that they would be forced to. Well, a good game. Let's check the post game. Atreus, of course, going to be winning with the 5 TCs, so yeah. Nothing all that surprising. Nothing all that surprising at all. Pretty decent upgrades from all of the players. It was basically all decided by the extra population limit by the stolen DC from Narvi in the front. Yep, that was the drop after Ragnarok, of course. Well, GG.